testosterone reaction. And the more adrenaline, the more testosterone, the more aggressive the alpha male becomes. And so we have all these wars and warlords carrying on that want to stay alpha male with high testosterone and high stress and paranoia that goes with that. And so the UN, in its wisdom, really, and in its wisdom because it is a very egalitarian, well, it is and it isn't. Like all major organizations, there's a lot going on, but there's a lot of women's energy and diversity in the UN. So in 2000, they passed a remarkable resolution, Security Council Resolution 1325, and it is a resolution that's referred to as a Women, Peace, and Security Resolution. And that resolution says that it is to the benefit of all parties for women to be involved in anything that is in conflict leading up to actually armed conflict, to be involved at every stage and at the end as well to resolve it and to bring peace back. Now we know the part about when everything has been just devastated, like in Rwanda, where 800,000 people are murdered within 30 days or 60 days, and then the people who did it flee, and the country that's left behind, well, they're the women. And what the women did was, first of all, they actually had the equivalent of like workshops where the Tutsi women and the Hutu women and the Twa women talked about what they had been through, about the murders that had happened, the children that were dead, etc. And they did what women do. They expressed what it was that they had gone through, and they found it, you know, what was in common. And out of that came a decision. There were 500,000 orphans and orphanages.
Oh my God.
And they decided that since so many children were dead, and there were so many orphans that needed homes, they decided and spoke about every home a child. And they went and practically emptied the orphanages with no reaction that if you were a Hutu,
It didn't
woman,
matter.
it didn't matter.
It was a child.
Yes.
And we have to take care of each other.
And then you got it exactly, because this is what it is to be a woman.
This is what it is to be a woman.
Yes.
This is what it is to be in collaboration.
Yes.
Wow, this is so beautiful, so moving.
And so much what's possible if more and more, if every, like, if there were 50% women at every important conversation to do with settling things in this world. For one thing, if they were involved at the beginning with should we go to war?
Yeah, they'd say no. They probably would compromise and probably collaborate.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. They'd probably seek for a better solution for all.
Well,
first.
because there isn't a whole bunch of problems of lowering your testosterone and becoming less alpha if you give in, you know?
Yeah.
And so this was the story in Sierra Leone, and this is the first experience I had at the UN in 2002. They had just settled an ongoing civil war that had been going on and on and on. But there were women who were involved, as there actually have been talking to each other. There are women who are talking to each other now in Israel-Palestine. There are women who were talking during the 30-year troubles in Northern Ireland. There have always been women who have worked underneath all of the stuff that was going on to try and bring about a more peaceful solution to things. So here are these women who were in communication. Some of them had to be exiled, some of them came back. And then there was a kind of a ceasefire, and the women, the warlords, were expected to come to the table to settle a peace accord. And 1325, that UN resolution, Women, Peace and Security, was in place. And this was a small enough situation that it could be imposed on them.
Oh, interesting.
So the warlords had to have women involved in the peace talks. And the women who were from Sierra Leone were reporting it back to the Commission on Status of Women meetings, and it was all settled. They had contributed to making peace. And they were saying that there was this one warlord who was just so offended when he was told that he had to have women present at these peace accords. And he said, "What do we want these women for? You know they would just make compromises." You know? And the whole room went like, duh. But a woman is not doesn't lose face and stuff to help bring about peace.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what are we doing having peace in the world dependent on men who have all that difficulty making compromises? As soon as they make a compromise, they're considered a loser or a wimp or something. And there's this sort of personal need to maintain some status. And meanwhile, children are suffering. There's not food. I mean, all for this sort of image or power or whatever it is.
Well, one of the things, too, that you talked about, I read that you had sent me over, was how when men and women, when the women can hold the sky and the men can hold the earth.
Oh, that's, yes.
Yes, I don't want to talk too much about that, but you know, there was something about that, because I've always been, it's always been important to me that if the women really could step into who they are, if they had power, if they understood their beauty and their grace by connecting. And for me, being from the business world,
right.
It was about, seeing that women didn't have, maybe through education or just simply just not being in that world, they didn't have economic stability. They didn't have, and because of that, sometimes they didn't have the choices they could have. And I've always felt that men and women could come together. It was always about, it's always occurred to me, even when I was climbing up the ranks in corporate, right? And people would say, well, what about the glass ceiling? I'm like, what ceiling? All I know is that if I'm going to do something, I'm just going to step up. I may not even have the skill set, but I know I'm going to step up because I know it'll be delivered. Right. And it's never occurred to me like men, women. It's always been about what can humanity do? What is it that we're here to accomplish together in collaboration with everyone and everything on the planet?